Bulletcast for life.
Man, haven't heard that music in forever. What's up, guys? It's your boy Brandon Tanguma here with a new episode of Under the Radar. Yes, I may have missed the Bulletcast this past Wednesday/Thursday, but it was for good reason. My boy, Curveballs and Shark Shots co-host Dominic Hobson, he might be leaving us, might be moving. So we did a little get together. So that's the reason why I wasn't there. So I had a valid excuse, I believe. If you want to listen to the full explanation, we'll listen to Curveballs and Chair Shots, and we'll talk a little bit more about it in depth. But Curveballs and Chair Shots going on a little bit of a hiatus, but we will come back. But we're here to talk pro wrestling under the radar. I checked the tape. It's been well over a year since the last episode of Under the Radar. Officially, the last one was April 28th, 2021. So damn near a year and a half. If we're going to go by episodes, if this is still chronologically a series, this is episode 85 of Under the Radar. Damn, did not realize I had that many episodes of Under the Radar. I used to, if you guys are new to the Bulletcast, welcome. This used to be a podcast where I would come on, I think like every Tuesday or something like that. Back when we used to record like Fridays. So this would be kind of like a midweek episode for the RSS feed where I would talk about, as the name would suggest, under the radar type stuff, where we would talk about New Japan, NXT, go over some of the reality shows that WWE would be doing. Basically the stuff that we wouldn't talk about on the regular episode of the Bulletcast. I would come on here and do a solo little pod and get my thoughts out there. Usually they weren't that long, like, half hour or something like that. If I was really passionate, if there was a big show like a Wrestle Kingdom or like a big NXT takeover or something like that, they'd be longer. But this episode's just going to be me. We're going to loosely do it off the Bulletcast script. So it's going to be my own special episode of the Bulletcast. I listen to the product as much as, I have the ongoing bit, which is a bit, obviously I listen to all the stuff, but I listen back to the episode 294. If you're not listening to it, please go check it out. Philip Katie did a hell of a job. Could have been better if I was on it. Yes, absolutely. But, some things might have been said about my effort putting into this podcast, and maybe that was a stern kick in the ass that I needed to open my eyes. And so here we are. And yes, also Under the Radar, uncensored. I might let some things fly. There's no such thing as a bad word. Okay, just bad intent. This may be not suitable for the minivan. Everything on this slate, I'm not going to be too fired up about, but I might, let a couple F-bombs and stuff fly. So hide your kids, hide your wives, hide all them. So let's just jump on into it. As I said, this is pretty much just my own episode of the Bulletcast that I will be doing, going over kind of the news and notes of the week, maybe sprinkling some new updated news that's gone on in the last 48 hours since the episode recording. But if you haven't heard, episode 300 for the Bulletcast is going to be a monumental occasion. We're going to do a live in person. That's usually what a live podcast would entail. We are going to be going up to the Woodland for the Collectible Stampede October 9th, 2022 from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's going to be up there in Woodland, California. It's going to be at Taqueria Guadalajara, 6 West Court in Woodland, California. There's tacos, wrestling, family fun, a giant burrito contest, eating contest. Maybe your boy's going to participate, maybe not. Come through, see what happens. But definitely me and Philip will be going. Katie says she has a prior obligation the day before, but she's going to try. Who knows what the hell if Brian's going to show up. We're hoping maybe get the full squad. Maybe there'll be some special guests along the way. We shall find out. But it's going to be a big episode, exciting episode. This has been in the works for, 6 months at least, and it's going to be a fun time. So even if you're not in the Woodland area, if you're in driving distance, come on up, say hi. It's going to be a good time. AEW has not been in driving distance around here. Well, they were in LA for 2 shows, but AEW has not been in the Bay Area for a long time, ever. We've been wanting this forever since it started back in 2019. We haven't gotten it, but rumors and speculation that the Cow Palace will be the host for AEW Revolution, and I am ecstatic. I'm excited. We've been asking this for a long time. I mean, I thought maybe we could have got the Cow Palace at Revolution or at Full Gear, not Fall Brawl. Been watching some Monday Night War stuff, and so I got Fall Brawl on the mind. But the Cow Palace, historic venue, been there a couple times for APW shows, and that big, it was the first ever show in the United States, but it was kind of the biggest show for New Japan at that time in the States at the Cow Palace. And it's a great venue. Obviously, it's older, but the history, dating back to the territory days, WCW ran a bunch of shows there. Obviously the Eddie Guerrero No Way Out pay-per-view is legendary. And there's been a few things happening. Obviously, like APW kind of revitalized it a few years back, but for the most part, the Cow Palace hasn't really been too much of a thing in pro wrestling. And so it's nice that AEW is coming here and running a show there. I am super excited. Possibly we might be able to get some press passes. Maybe we'll be able to do some things, maybe be part of a press conference and someone gets all cranky and yells at us and calls us fake news, and who knows what happens, but we shall be there. Hopefully you guys can join us. I know for a lot of the pay-per-views, they kind of make a weekend or like a whole week out of it. And I don't think the Cow Palace is exactly a place that AEW could run a Dynamite Wednesday, live Rampage Friday, and then do the pay-per-view Sunday. But the Bay Area is such a huge place that you can run, this also is like scheduling and how much they are willing to pay for travel and stuff. You could run like San Jose, Oakland, and then the Cow Palace, or you could run, an Oakland taping of Rampage and Dynamite, and then go over to the Cow Palace. Because, I mean, for those who aren't aware, the Cow Palace, it is San Francisco, but also not San Francisco. It's a little bit of a drive if you live across the bay. So kind of getting that East Bay flair of Oakland, maybe even the South Bay and San Jose, and then going over to the Cow Palace in nearby San Francisco could be a fun event. And hopefully they do something like that, kind of keeping AEW in the Bay Area for that week's time, and we can hit up a few shows, have some fun. Should be a great time. Another pay-per-view, Survivor Series. Don't know where the hell that is. I should probably, if I was prepared, I would have seen where Survivor Series. I can't even spell Survivor, but Google's got me. Google knows how dumb I am and how much I can't spell. But it is going to be at the TD Garden in Boston. So a hot venue, a cool spot for that. But Triple H loves the War Games. See, Phil, I listened to the podcast. Philip wanted me to do the gimmick. I did the gimmick. Triple H saying, or they just straight up announced that War Games will be coming to Survivor Series this year. And I got mixed feelings about it. Obviously, I love War Games, the concept. NXT had just fantastic War Games matches. I went to a War Games down when they did NXT TakeOver in LA. Who was it? It was Undisputed Era taking on, was it War Machine, or sorry, Viking War Raider Experience, and Ricochet and somebody. I forget exactly what the whole thing was, but I remember Ricochet jumped off the top of the cage, and there was some other good stuff. But it's I like the concept. I think it's good from getting away from that SmackDown versus Raw gimmick that they do. But in the graphic or in the logo, it does have one side blue, one side red, which does kind of make me a little timid that they are going to do something like that, which I don't like. Also, the whole gimmick, having a gimmick tied to a pay-per-view, like, a War Games, Hell in a Cell, Elimination Chamber, TLC. There's just so many of those that I kind of wish they didn't do that. Like, maybe, internally say, okay, we're going to have a War Games at Survivor Series, but don't leak it and don't make it a thing, just because it does take you out of the moment. And also it kind of handcuffs them to say, oh, Hell in a Cell's coming up next month. We need to do this. We need to have a Hell in a Cell match, which this year it did work because of the Cody Seth storyline. But for the most part, there's always they're shoehorning in these gimmicks in like a TLC match where it doesn't really need to have that type of gimmick. So I wish with Triple H they could dial that back and go back to just the kind of generic naming pay-per-views to where it's not tied to a gimmick. So you have to do that type of match because it does take the excitement and take the novelty of that out of the match itself. But first year of War Games on main roster WWE ever. We've never seen a full-fledged WWE main roster War Games, so that is going to be exciting. The Bloodline is obviously kind of the big faction right now that people are talking about of being in this match. I mean, I agree. I think that would be a great match. Now, I could see them taking Roman out of the match and just having it be Usos, Sami Zayn, and Solo taking on kind of like a hodgepodge collection of people, Kevin Owens, Johnny Gargano, maybe Drew McIntyre and somebody else from SmackDown. So yeah, and they're also going to be men's and women's. So I don't know how the women's is exactly going to play out because you have I almost said Control Your Narrative, but Damage Control. That's a 3-woman team. You could add a Charlotte because she's just nowhere to be seen right now. You could add another heel into that dynamic to make it a 4-on-4 or 5-on-5. But and that's also the other thing of having 2 War Games. Like I get it, you want to have a women's and a men's one, but having 2 War Games on a show back to back, or not back to back, but on the same show does kind of also take away the novelty of it a bit. But first time, it's going to be a big deal. Hopefully, now that we're kind of in the Triple H era, we can kind of get away from these novelty, gimmick match pay-per-view names. So anyways, the NBC Warner Bros. merger. I'm not a TV guy or a TV guide, but I mean, maybe this is a lot of noise for nothing because yes, the prospect of AEW and WWE being under the same umbrella is intriguing, but like, is it going to happen? I don't know. I mean, Warner Bros. Just did a merger with Discovery. That's not going so well. The Discovery person was the one to like take over it and be the head honcho. He's just like cutting jobs and TV shows and stuff left and right. So merging that with NBC, who knows what's going to happen on that front. But yeah, I'm not going to get into like, oh, just because these 2 people are together, that means only one can exist on the network, or there's going to be a dream WWE AEW show. That's probably not going to happen. So I just think this is a lot to do about nothing. Ariel Helwani had interviews with Triple H and MJF separately, of course. I didn't check it out entirely, but I saw some clips of the Triple H interview. Like Ariel Helwani is a great MMA journalist, like no doubt about it. But when it comes to like these type of interviews, like the Triple H interview, I think he could have gone a little bit harder in like asking the questions. This was kind of like a softball type interview, just kind of promoting the brand and kind of asking easy questions for Triple H to answer. And MJF, this is kind of allegedly what started the rift between MJF and Tony Khan, was an permitted interview with Ariel Helwani. And MJF has been doing the rounds on the interviews as well as Tony Khan because of the New York show. And MJF has great chemistry with Ariel. So 2 good interviews. If you haven't, go check them out. Anyways, let's get on into the SmackDown recap. The big thing kind of in WWE right now is Logan Paul and Roman Reigns. It has been announced. There was a press conference that Logan Paul and Roman Reigns are going to go at it one-on-one in November, I believe. Or is it October? I don't know. I don't really care. They're going to Saudi Arabia for blood money, and it is going to be for the double championship. I mean, it is what it is. Like, it is kind of laughable that Logan Paul is getting a title shot against Roman. That being said, like I understand why they're doing it. Apparently the Prince like knows Logan Paul and wanted this match. And that's been the case for a lot of the blood money shows. The Prince will say he wants this match or wants this person on the show, and WWE does what they can because they're getting so much money for these shows that they can afford to bring in Undertaker, Kane, Goldberg, Shawn Michaels, whoever else. Well, apparently he wanted Yokozuna and the Ultimate Warrior to show up, but for obvious reasons, that could not happen. But I know they talked about it on the Bullet Cast that it's going to bring in new eyeballs or bring in the casual fans. And like in terms of like actual eyeballs and how many people will watch Crown Jewel, this is on a Saturday. Usually they've been like those weird Thursday shows. So I think this will be the most watched Blood Money show out of all of them, which isn't really like a high bar to clear, but I just don't really see how this is that big of a deal for WWE because Logan Paul's been in the company a few times already, had his matches, and I just don't really see a bump. Like honestly, like I know who the Paul brothers are. I'm not like in their universe, and I don't kind of like I understand they're kind of a big deal, but like it's now in the age of the internet and celebrities, they're kind of like a big deal in their own bubble. And how many eyeballs can they like actually bring to the product? And like you can bring eyeballs to the product, but will they actually it's one thing to bring people to watch it, but it's another thing to like keep those people invested and watch for the rest, to keep them viewing even when Logan Paul isn't on the show. Like Logan Paul, we said, is a fantastic athlete and he's done well in the matches he's been a part of, but it's just kind of one of those things that it's gonna like be icky. And I mean, the Blood Money shows were already kind of a sensitive subject for wrestling fans already. You bring in the Logan Paul stuff, kind of, irks the wrestling fan. And then the casual fan who knows Logan Paul might like watch this, but it's going to be like a spectacle. And it's going to be kind of, I don't want to like go too far and say it's like a clown show, but as I said, like they might subscribe to Peacock or, call up, ask their friends who has a Peacock subscription to like, lend them the password and watch it. And then after that, they're just not going to, or they'll see clips on the internet, which is kind of like how a lot of people watch like the Paul brothers boxing fights. Like I know, like for me personally, like I'll be intrigued to see the Paul, Logan or Jake Paul, the brother, take on Floyd May or take on Anderson Silva, but it's like, I'm not going to pay $40-$50, however much they're charging to see them have a full blown fight. But I mean, we'll see. Roman is kind of lacking competitors right now, like outside of like Kevin or, people he hasn't wrestled yet on this reign. So getting Logan Paul in on a Blood Money show, which is kind of like a non-canon thing, but it's going to be they treat it like a big deal during Raw and SmackDown. And then once the show's over, they kind of just pretend like it never existed. So I think that's what's going to happen on this. It's going to be a big deal for a while. And then once it's over, it's going to be like, oh, moving on to Survivor Series, whatever the next pay-per-view is. Solo Sikoa and Madcap Mouse had a match, no one could hurt, so we can ask for. Continue to love the dynamic of Sammy and now adding Solo to the mix and him kind of being on board with Sammy. And this is another thing. This is one of the bigger matches for Roman on his reign so far. And it's at Saudi Arabia. Sami Zayn, who's probably the best thing going in WWE and probably the best thing going in wrestling right now, can't be at the show. So just another kind of negative on the whole aspect of things. Brawling Brutes get a tag title shot. Good for them. Outside the ring, MJF, Mandy Rose get engaged not to each other, but to separate partners. Good for them. And Trish Stratus announced she had surgery, got her appendix removed. Glad to see she is healthy and recovering, and not T's and P's because usually those are for bad things. But shout out Trish. Hopefully she gets better. Did see Maria Kanellis did do an interview somewhere, and she said to bring back the Divas title, and Trish just quote tweeted that and just said no. And I completely agree. There's like a time and place that you possibly could bring back the Divas title, but not like as a division, like as an actual title, obviously, but kind of like a quote unquote diva, like revitalizing it and like claiming it as her own, like a Toxic Attraction or a Carmella, Eva Marie type, to where like they're like an overly sexualized character and they kind of call themselves a diva and they kind of take that title. But then there's a lot of negative feelings towards the butterfly title. So I kind of get well, I don't know if I completely understand where Maria Kanellis is coming from, but like that's kind of her era of wrestling. So I can kind of see that she doesn't want that kind of era to be written off and just kind of forgotten about. I agree with Mickey. I would much rather have the original, or not the original, but kind of that attitude era, you know, ruthless aggression women's championship back. I think that is just a classic title design. It's simple. It looks great. I like it much better than the women's championship they have now. It's just a giant WWE logo on it. And, we talked about it last week on the possible new logos or new titles. And I understand the marketing aspect of it, but I wish they were a little bit more individualized. Like that's why I love the US and IC titles. They are so different and they're not just a corporate shill of a title with a giant company logo on the front of it. Moving on over to Raw, Lashley retains his U.S. title. Speaking of the U.S. title, against Seth Rollins with a distraction by Matt Riddle. Gotta love the distraction finishes. It is what it is. Kind of surprising they kept it on Lashley. I thought maybe Seth would be a good person to take it off of him. Kind of, you can, take Lashley, who's gained some momentum recently, but you're not going to like go all the way with him and make him a top guy ever again, I don't think. But like you can take him, get the title off of him, and you can have him be a challenger to Roman because, as I said, you don't have too many people Roman hasn't faced yet. But Lashley is one of those guys. But with Logan Paul, taking him on at Blood Money, and Roman taking the dates back, not doing as many dates, I don't know when his next match would be after that, whether it's the December pay-per-view or Royal Rumble. But Lashley definitely can be one of those guys that Roman can face. Now, if the plan for Roman is to walk out of WrestleMania the champion, then I think Lashley is another, as a person, as I said, you can have him face, after post-Mania, if they are kind of trying to save some people for the next post-WrestleMania run for Roman. Kevin Owens defeated Theory. Another solid match. Now, I know people might say, oh, they're burying Theory and Theory's now winning and Triple H has nothing for him and he hates him, blah, 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 blah. I don't think that's the case. Triple H, from what I've heard from my sources, Triple H is a fan of Theory and he's young enough that I think he can bounce back from this. Now, he might have to like change his gimmick up and change his persona for them to be more of a thing, or for him to be more of a serious character and for people to take him more seriously. But I'm not the biggest Theory fan, but I'm not writing him off like an Omos or some of the other guys that Triple H hasn't used that much since taking over. Kevin Owens, once again, I'm a huge fan of him. I think he is so much better in his current position as the prize fighter, as kind of going back to his roots. I love that. This was the match in San Jose, by the way. Shout out, Philip was there. And I kind of wish I was on the Bulletcast just to kind of ask him questions about the environment because, San Jose and the Bay Area in total, that's another reason why I'm intrigued to see what an AEW Bay Area crowd is going to be like. I know it'll be a pay-per-view crowd, so there will be some people traveling, but the Bay Area, like it's kind of a weird, like the Bay Area WWE crowd is kind of weird. Like they can get up for some things and they can be loud for like the important big time things, but like the lower level things and things, if they will react for things that deserve to be reacted to, but then when there's things that they don't really care about, it'll be silent. So there was a QR code and there were QR codes scattered throughout. Apparently, well, the thing on the video said like 9:23, which while you're listening to this, it is 9:23. So I guess there's going to be some sort of shenanigans or something's going to happen today on SmackDown. Probably by the time this thing gets uploaded, something's going to happen. The big theory is that it is Bray Wyatt. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Bray. Like, I know there's a lot of people out there that like creatively, he's like so good and he can be utilized so much better. And I agree, like his vignettes and his creativity is like fantastic. But then once it gets in the ring, I think that's where he kind of loses it for me. Like I was a defender of the Firefly Funhouse match with John Cena because I thought it told a really good story. Now there's some other people out there who very much disagree and hated that match, but I thought that was honestly maybe one of Bray Wyatt's better matches, up there with that Royal Rumble match with Daniel Bryan. And so Bayley came home. I think they probably muted the crowd a little bit because it didn't sound like they gave her much of a reaction, but I would assume for Bayley coming back to San Jose, it would have been a good pop and a good reaction for her. And they close out the show with Alexa Bliss and Bayley. And I think this was WWE kind of punting on the show just because it was a doubleheader Monday Night Football game. So I think they knew and understood that it was going to be tough sledding trying to compete with that. And even though the games weren't very good, but they were four big time teams that on paper should have been draws. So I kind of get where they're coming from. And Bianca and Bayley going to go out at Extreme Rules. It makes sense. And I wouldn't be shocked if Bayley wins that match. Judgment Day defeats Riddle and Rey Mysterio. I think Judgment Day has or at least the Dominic and Rey dynamic continues to be a pleasant surprise. I think Dominic isn't asked to do much, which I think is a good thing. Not trying to be mean about it, but I think the way he carries himself with Rhea and, Finn and Damian to an extent, but it's obviously more of a Dominic and Rhea pairing up against Rey. I think Rey's done a good job as well. And I think they will try to extend this feud out. Now, can they get it all the way out to WrestleMania, which I was kind of thinking of when he first turned? It's going to be a challenge. Now, Edge is coming back, probably maybe Survivor Series or Royal Rumble time. So maybe they do something where they kind of write off Rey. Rey can go away for a little bit. Edge comes back. Edge and Dominic do some things, I guess the main feud is with Dominic, so it's not like Edge will face Finn, even though it's going to be a better match. But, the Judgment Day stuff hasn't been that bad. All right, guys, moving on over to AEW Dynamite. They kick it off with an ROH title match with Jericho taking on Claudio Castagnoli. This was at Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York. And fantastic atmosphere, great venue, great look. They really update the set design AEW does for these shows. They have I don't even know what you would call it. It's the ramp, but they have a video on the ramp, digital ramp. I don't fucking know. Oh, no swearing, but we can swear on Under the Radar. But Jericho does win with underhanded tactics, and it was a good match. Jericho has been open about how he's really gotten into shape these last few months, and it's paid off. He looks really good. He's had much better matches recently, and he beats Claudio, and Ian Riccaboni, who's on commentary, very much was hammering home that this was not an honorable win for Jericho to win the ROH title. And I think that's definitely the direction they're going with Daniel Garcia coming out at the end and kind of giving a half-assed high five with Jericho. So, Jericho winning the ROH title, it seems kind of similar to Jericho being the first ever AEW champion. They're trying to kickstart the brand of ROH if and when they get a TV deal, which I think they need a TV deal or do something with that brand, because just muddying the water having ROH and AEW on the same shows, and there's so many titles to begin with, and now putting, I also don't think it's a great idea to have a world championship match open the show when you're closing the show trying to crown your own world champion. But that's me. I wouldn't have another company's world championship kick off the show to kind of reiterate, to remind people that, oh, look, there's another world champion in our own company. So who cares about, I've been on that soapbox before, but Jericho winning, we're gonna have to wait and see what happens. I do think this is the kind of more of a long-term story with Daniel Garcia, and I think it will end with Daniel Garcia ultimately being the ROH champion, which should be fun. And I don't know when the next pay-per-view or the next big show the ROH title will be on, but it's cool. As I said, very similar to them putting the title on Jericho for the first AEW title. So maybe they're trying to build that and attach Jericho's name to ROH to lift up the brand a little bit. Historically, it is important because now Jericho has been, champion in WCW, WWE, ROH, and winning all these different titles. So, good for him from that historical standpoint. Now on the other side, Claudio, didn't have a very he had a ho-hum title reign. Like, he had some good matches. He comes back for the New Japan show, and he just hasn't really done much. He's almost kind of like in that Cesaro spot. Like, he gets some wins, not exactly pushed to like a superstar level. Now, should he be? Probably not, like, especially with some of the other people on that. But Claudio's just kind of in that pool of AEW wrestlers of like an Andrade, Malachi Black, Miro, and a bunch of other people that you probably could do more with, but just right now they're not doing much more with. So I don't know where you go with Claudio from here. It seemed as though he was more of like an ROH guy than an AEW guy. So putting the title on him made sense. Now, what does he do post title win? Does he move on to be in more of the AEW roster, universe, galaxy, whatever they're trying to call it? So I have to wait and see on that front. Another title match, a lot of title matches on the show. The Acclaim defeat Swerve and Glory to be the new tag team champions. And this match was good, not as good as their All Out match, but solid, fantastic eruption, great pop for the Acclaim coming back to New York. And this match was kind of a foregone conclusion. A lot of people predicted that the Acclaim were going to get the win, and they did. I thought Swerve and Glory did a good job. They were playing the antagonist, but weren't exactly full-fledged heels. So it's not like they're going to undercut their character, and whatever they do after this, whether they are a tag or a singles, is going to devalue them. Not a big fan of the finish with Billy Gunn, interfering on the outside, hitting a famouser, and that's how the babyface, the hometown heroes, get the win to win their first ever titles. Not a big fan of that. I mean, if you kind of look through the track record of Billy Gunn in AEW, I think he gets way more shine than he should. And like, he couldn't even like put over his own son's clean, which is like, whatever, dude. But the Acclaim get the win. Now, where do they go from here? I mean, I don't know. FTR have been the number one contenders forever. Now, will they finally get that title shot? But that's another face match, and FTR is much more popular than Swerve and Glory, and the Acclaim is definitely, they're not like a joke act, but it's definitely like the scissor me daddy ass, and it's almost like ironically people are cheering for them, but they also do genuinely like them as well. So kind of throwing FTR in the mix, where, I mean, earlier in the year they were so hot and they were on such a run that I was like no shot. They have to be the champions. They're going to hold all the gold, take the Ultimo Dragon picture, and off to the races. But some heat with the Young Bucks, and FTR kind of camp, Team CM Punk. That probably doesn't do them any favors at the moment. But this tag team division was once very, very strong, and it's just hasn't been quite the success I think a lot of people expected to be. Now, there have been some fantastic matches, don't get me wrong, but it hasn't been the tag team division I think a lot of people thought it was going to be. Another championship match, the All Atlantic Championship, the most prestigious of the championships of the Atlantic, as Pac defeats Orange Cassidy. Good match, as you'd expect. Pac hits Cassidy with a foreign object for the win. They might go on and have another match, but this was kind of like even though it was a title match and all the matches on this were title matches, it was just kind of there. Maybe a little bit of a come down from the first two matches, but it is what it is. Then the AEW Interim Women's Championship, as Toni Storm defeats Serena Deeb, Athena, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. Britt once again busts up her nose. She is a bloody mess, and the match was fine. All four women worked really hard. All four of them are pros, and Toni gets the win at the end. I mean, nothing too much to say. I think Toni deserves to kind of get a run with the title, and maybe I would much rather it be like some good one-on-one stories and just kind of throwing in these four women who in their own aspects I think are fantastic, and if they were on their own and having a feud with Toni could be good stuff, but I think just kind of throwing them all in together muddies the waters. But obviously what everyone's talking about is after the match, Jamie Hayter comes in, teases dissension with Britt Baker, but it was all a swerve, bro, as then she beats down on the baby faces, and Saraya comes in to make her AEW debut, an absolute monster pop for her. I think she was kind of taken aback by it, and she didn't get physical. From all reports indicating that she is not medically cleared to wrestle. So, I don't know what this exactly means. It was telling that she didn't really do anything. Like, I understand it's like a big moment and you're trying to milk it and stuff, but no one touched her. She didn't do anything, and now it's kind of come out that she's not cleared. And I don't know what exactly you do with her. Like, she is super talented. She's charismatic. People love her. Like, you can do stuff with her, like as a manager. But like we saw in WWE, she almost kind of overshadows the people she's working with, that she's managing. And if you put her with someone who's like on her level, like a Tony Storm, Athena, or whoever else you want, like even if she were, well, even if she were to like team up with Jamie Hayter, even though she is a heel right now, kind of have the British connection. Like, I just don't know how that is going to work. And obviously she can't get, let's just say she can't be touched whatsoever because of her neck. I don't know really what is it worth it to bring her in, and what's the payoff gonna be. Now, she's been boisterous that she wants to wrestle. She thinks she can wrestle. Now, we've seen a lot of things with Daniel Bryan, Edge, some other people that have had some neck head injuries. But Saraya is different. We haven't really seen this like with a woman wrestler. So we'll have to wait and see on that. If she is able to compete and she can do it safely, I think this is a phenomenal get for AEW, because I would say she's the biggest star the women's division has at this moment. I would have loved to see Sasha and or Naomi. Well, Sasha definitely, but if bringing Naomi, she's a good get as well. And AEW's women division has genuinely been lacking stars and attention. And I think I've kind of come to the realization that I don't think Tony Khan is really that big of a women's wrestling fan. And I think he's even said that, like, when he grew up, he was more of like that ECW Attitude Era type wrestling fan. And so like in that era, it wasn't like women's wrestling wasn't like a big deal unless you kind of went out of your way and like watched the Japan stuff. And like, not like calling Tony Khan a sexist or anything like that, but I just don't think he has like the same passion for like women's wrestling than he does for like the tag team or like the men's singles divisions. So, and Kenny apparently is like head of the women's division. I mean, we've kind of seen how the EVPs, how that situation has panned out over the past 3 years. So anyways, the final match, the main event of the show, AEW World Championship match, Jon Moxley taking on Bryan Danielson. They ran a video package earlier, and I thought it was a really good package. Maybe not as good as Austin Aries' package, but a really good package. And, forgot to put it. They didn't put this on the script. They did put on the script, but I just completely missed it because I cannot read. Wheeler Yuta got on stage, and MJF interrupted him. We got, standard MJF stuff. And once again, MJF getting cheered. If he's going to be in the Northeast, I think it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to get cheered. But they're trying to pull out all the stops to get people to boo him. And he pushes Tony Schiavone, which is a big deal. Yes, Stokely Hathaway got physical with Tony a little bit, but not as much as MJF did. So that was kind of an ace in the hole that they've kind of been saving for, and I think it did pay off well. It did get a good reaction and got MJF booed. Now you can go to like the next step and someone like laying out Tony and getting like really physical and like him being written off for a few weeks. But AEW has kind of botched the MJF situation, going back to them making him a babyface in Long Island, the stuff with the promo, leaving the company after Double or Nothing. And now he's back as a heel. And I think they definitely want him to be a heel, but the crowd just will cheer him. Now every time he like says, the guy goes for the low blow and the cheap heat, they'll boo him, but it's just not the same thing that it was when he was, on fire earlier in the year. And when, the other times he was doing stuff for the company. So MJF still a big star, apparently getting paid like over $1 million a year. Good for him. Get your money, boo-boo. But MJF is, I understand he's super talented. People have liked him for a long time, but MJF is much better when he's like that dirt worst heel that you just want to see him get his ass kicked. And he used to be that way, but now people are starting to cheer for him more. And it kind of takes the shine off MJF a little bit. And it's a shame that they can't really put that genie back in the bottle. But anyways, back to the main event. Jon Moxley defeats Bryan Danielson. So he is the first ever 3-time AEW World Champion. Now, I thought with the rumors of Moxley canceling his vacation, Bryan hasn't had the title in a bit. It would just kind of be the same thing going back to Moxley. They would put the title on Danielson, but no, they put the title on Moxley. And it was a little bit of a surprise and good for Moxley. I mean, he has just been killing it. These are two of my favorites in AEW, but Moxley has just kind of been on a different level these past few months, and well deserved. Good for him. Hopefully he can really, get a good solid run. Now, the one thing I didn't like about the match is MJF up in the skybox, and I think they focused too much on him. Like, okay, we get it. He has his chip. He's watching the match. Do we really have to cut to him like every 2 minutes to see him just look at the ring? I thought they overdid that a little bit for me. But the match itself, I thought it was a really good match. Now, was it Moxley and Bryan's best match ever? No, but hard hitting. I thought they told a good physical story, and Moxley getting the win. You can kind of see it coming because early on, MJF, when talking about the tournament, he kind of focused more on Moxley than any of the other participants. So it not like it blew the finish by any means, because a lot of people thought Bryan Danielson was going to win this match, but you could see they're planting the seeds of Moxley and MJF fall. Once again, I almost call it fall brawl. Full Gear taking place in the Prudential Center in New Jersey in November, I believe. So maybe they get it all the way to that point for MJF to face Moxley. They had some sort of number one contender match because AEW loves to, pull up number one contenders out their ass instead of having the number one contender that they have for their own rankings. But it is what it is. Don't know. Rampage is going on right now. I don't know what time Rampage comes on, but by the time you listen to this, either you've seen the spoilers or you've watched the show already. So Jon Moxley, new AEW World Champion, and I am happy for him. Hopefully he eventually gets that vacation with his family, but well-deserved Moxley. And I am excited to kind of see what him and MJF are cooking. Because as I said, MJF, not the heel that he used to be, and maybe with Moxley kind of going back and forth on the mic, they can kind of get that magic once again. Now, hopefully MJF, which he does quite a bit, goes to the low road, kind of talked about it. He went down that road with William Regal talking about popping pills. I'm a little scared that they're going to go down the alcoholic route. So we'll have to see about that. So that is it for Under the Radar. I did not time this. I don't know how long we've been going, but I think we've been going for long enough. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Oh, I guess, for all shits and giggles, I guess we could go to, guys, if you have a question, if you want me to answer an email in about 6.5 or in a year and a half. Now I don't even have it anymore. I guess I deleted it or I just took it out. utrmailbag@gmail.com. That is utrmailbag@gmail.com if you want to send in a question. But, follow the Bulletcast on all of our social medias. If you would like to send in a question, bulletcast2sweet@gmail.com. That is bulletcast, the number 2 sweet@gmail.com. I will be back for your regular scheduled Bulletcast this next week. So it will be at least the new full group of me, Philip, and Katie. Who knows if Brian's going to ever show up again? Hopefully he does. It's fun when he's around. Maybe we get the full quartet debut next week, but we'll have to stay tuned and find out. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. See ya in a year and a half for the next episode of Under the Radar. Goodbye and good night. Bye-bye.